All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another Solution Sunday. I'm Lisa Warner. I am the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing and creator of Solution Sunday, because the soul is the solution. And today I am so excited to be here with my good friend, Rachel Ann. We are fortunate to live in close proximity to each other, so we are physically in communication a lot. We are soul tribe. And when we have the opportunity to gather together with others from our community or just ourselves, it is such a blessing to have soul tribe around us where we can just be ourselves and speak freely without fear of repercussion or judgment. And so today we wanted to have a conversation about the importance of soul tribe community. So Rachel Ann, welcome.
Thank you. Yay, this is fun.
It is always, I love Solution Sundays. We always have such a fabulous audience watching live on Facebook. Good morning, Brenda. Good morning, John. And, it's always such a pleasure to have just good conversation where we can just speak freely. So welcome, welcome.
Yeah, I agree. We coming from a place of not being around many people for the last 2 years, having somebody to speak with, not only speak with and communicate with, but communicate on a like-minded level is so important. And I didn't realize it until I actually had it again.
Yeah. We've all gotten so used to being separated and isolated that that kind of became like normal, as far as, well, I'm just going to stay in my own little space and let the craziness of the world go on out there. But then once we start to, and that really served a great purpose to really help us tune in, to start tuning into our own inner wisdom, if we use that time for that purpose. Yeah. But, then once we start tuning into our own inner wisdom, and we're like, hey, something's so weird about this world. Like, there's got to be something else going on. But then we start tuning in and we're like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't sound right. But then we don't really have the people around us necessarily to back us up in our inner knowing.
Yeah, or to bounce off our ideas and meld with each other's perspectives even. It's like when you're around other people, you get to hear how they go about something, and you say, something inside of you says, yeah, I do that, but I do it a little bit different. And maybe if I did it this way, then, it's just, we share. By sharing with each other, we learn so much more about ourselves. And I mean, yeah, you can be alone and learn a lot about yourself because that's all you have, but you can go so much deeper when you have others around you, giving you little seeds.
Exactly. When I found myself facing cancer, and I always put air quotes around that, I didn't have anybody else to bounce any other ideas off. The expected route is just, you go to the doctor, you get your diagnosis, and then you just do what they tell you to do. And none of that seemed right to me. So I just thought, there's got to be a way that the body heals itself. And so I looked around out there and I was like, well, I don't see anybody else talking about, like, just let your body heal itself. Yeah. So I was like, I had to figure it all out on my own. And one of the things I realize now about just my own work is that, like, having other people to talk to can just speed your healing process or your integration process or your ascension, expansion process, like lightning speed. Because when you have little questions or, you wonder about something and somebody else has already like seen through that little step, it's like, oh, it can open up an entire realm of new possibilities instantly.
That's right. That's right. I was thinking about that yesterday too. How even just different stages of your life, somebody once said to me they were in a relationship and they were just like, I just wish people would talk more about these things. And, you know, they were talking about how they related with their husband. And I was like, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if people would just be more open like that? We joke and stuff like that, but there's some real intimate things that go on in relationships, and when you don't have anybody to talk to, you don't really understand it as well as you could or as clearly as you could. And and I think you miss we could miss out on a lot of goodness and a lot of growth if we don't have each other to speak with about it. And then I went so far as to think about my life as a child, growing up, women in particular. I was thinking about when you're a young girl and you become a woman, and you start menstruating. Nobody talks about it. It's like, how much more powerful would it be if young gals had each other to talk to? And then growing up, um, I know there's support out there for all of these things. And I know that I've met people, and I know there's groups, and I've been involved in these groups, but I don't think that everyone knows that those things are available to each other. And reaching out and not being afraid to reach out or afraid to say, hey, what do you think of this? I think our society has kind of pushed us to a point where we're supposed to be, shh, we don't talk about that. But I've kind of not so much that kind of person, and I'm glad, because it prompts other people to talk and join in and make something that's something okay, because we're all experiencing, and why not share with each other so that we can do it more peacefully and joyfully and easily, right?
Exactly. We've all been groomed since childhood to just believe certain things, to think certain ways, to look in certain directions. And, we're not taught to question, and a lot of times, even just in the school system, you can't question the teacher. And
Right.
it's like, well, because it's looked at as being disrespectful. Well, if you have questions and you're questioning, why are we learning this? What is this all about? What's actually true here? And then you get scolded for that. It's
Yeah,
like,
I
we
remember
just
that
get,
very well.
ah,
Yeah, I went to Catholic school and you weren't allowed, and
oh,
I'd question and they'd be like, yes, I think somebody whacked you once or twice. You're not supposed to question anything. And I still do it. I stayed a month at an ashram and I'm questioning the Swami in the temple, and he's like, I'm like, well, I want to know. Come on, let's share. They're sitting here with 50 people and nobody else is questioning this. Come on, there's got to be questions.
wow.
It,
Yeah, we're just so trained to
yeah,
trust the experts or listen to the authorities, or, to give our power away and to just simply not question anything.
yeah,
And, I think that, what, like when I went on my own healing journey, I questioned the system, because the system just didn't seem right to me. It seemed like there was an awful lot of suffering that went into healing.
it's
I
pretty
was like,
barbaric.
healing really shouldn't be this scary or this traumatic. And, you know, and when I looked in a different direction, I was like, oh, there's like a whole other way to do this. Like, and it's simple and it's natural and it's easy. and the body does it for free. Like, who knew? You know?
Yeah. And if you have community, then you get those little bits and pieces that lead you and network you. And but when you're in isolation, you don't have that network or that little spider web developing to, to check out this area or that area. Or since I don't most of the people probably don't know me here, but I just moved back to this area about 2 months ago, which is my hometown, and I hadn't been here for quite a while. And I had lived in on a mountain, on the side road for about 2 years by myself in a town that I knew nobody except for two people. And it was a great experience. It was exactly what I needed. But coming back here, I didn't realize how much I did not have community, like-minded community. Um, I met a few people here and there where there were a few things that we had in common, but it wasn't like the community that brings you to that space where you're like, oh yeah, I can totally sit back and be me and laugh and just relax and be amongst people. And but not only that, but learning. Like, since I've been here, I've been able to network and talk to people that I hadn't really communicated with in quite some time. And it's opened up a whole other world for me as a result of that. And I'm delving into areas of interest that I hadn't even been, you know, looking into or involved with. And now there's all kinds of new and different things evolving for me, which would not have happened had I not stuck my toe in the water and then eased myself in and decided that, yeah, I think it's okay for me to be out and about and amongst people. Um, but we all have our times, and some people, I probably went through a time where I didn't want to be around people, and I was afraid to, and I had some imprints from traumas too that caused that, but that caused me to go into a space of healing, but then you come out of it, so it's all good. It's all, a cycle that comes around. Just kind of prod yourself though, get yourself out there.
Exactly. John John is saying, being sent into the darkness sends one into their soul to find their soul purpose. And that's so true. It's like we have to have that time in solitude, and we'll just say the word isolation, but it's just like insulating ourselves
Yeah.
from the external narratives so that we can start to hear the soul. Because just like John said, we are each here with our own soul's purpose,
Mhm.
but with all the programming that we've had since childhood, it directs us in a different direction.
Yeah, the chatter. It is. You're right, John. It is really important for us to acknowledge that time of quiet and to be with it, so that we can get real solid and then go out and be in community again and be solid in who we are, and then take those pieces and little nuggets of truths and evolve.
Exactly. So many of us who are the light bringers, the light workers of the world, the sensitive souls, star seeds, whatever term you want to use, the ones that have always held that vision of peace on earth, of heaven on earth. Um, we've always felt very different, and really sensitive to all of the just craziness in the external world, and we've always felt that energy. And so we've always felt like, I mean, at least for me and talking to others, it's like, like I never felt like I fit in. Like I didn't know where I fit in or what it was that I was supposed to do here, because this crazy world and having to have a job and a 9 to 5 thing, and figure out what you're supposed to do in the world,
Right.
it was so overwhelming to me, and I just like I couldn't make sense of it. And so I always felt like I was like the misfit. And then now when we start to bring ourselves back into community, it's like, oh, you felt the same way too. And oh, you felt the same way too. It's like, oh, wait a minute. And then we start to realize, hey, there's like a whole huge network of us that felt the exact same way. And like John was saying, like we're here to bring that Christ consciousness back, as he's talking about. And it's like the soul tribes are here helping us to wake up and empower each other and bring this new layer of consciousness into the world.
Yeah,
So it's so incredibly important for us to be able to gather together so that we can all activate our soul's purpose.
yeah, definitely. So that the oneness, all the ancient scripts and all the ancient teachings, they all speak about the one being, being one, the oneness. And you can't be one if you're not connected. If you're you gotta have a connection there somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like we have to connect with ourselves first, and then we realize like, oh, we're all connected anyway.
Yeah. Years ago I had some people that I had met. I was networking, I was learning a lot. And throughout that learning, there was a lot of, you need to protect yourself, oh, here's this amulet, here's this stone, here's this. And I found that means of teaching was really, for me, for other people maybe they understood it differently, but being, kind of like, wow, new to all of this the jargon they were using, I was like, what, protect myself? It was really disconnecting me. And and I went down a long path of exploring that. And I found that the more I opened my heart and I opened my connection to all that is, because I come from a place where everything, every single creation and every single thought of creation is divine. There's no one or the other. Everything is of divine because everything is of one of. And so I found that if I'm protecting myself against something or someone, that's disconnecting me from everything, because I'm here as a connecting point. And I may never know exactly what my role is in the whole grand scheme of things, but I know that I'm here as a connection point. And my existence is a connection point. So how can I be against, and still allow for the whole to grow and be one? And that was really profound to me, and I try to keep that in my everyday dealings, because I think it's important. And I find myself still doing it, like, oh, I'm not doing that, but then I'm like, okay, in my head I'm like, all right, what's a better way to go about that? Or I don't want to be with that person, or what's a better way to go about that where I can still maintain that connection. And it's community is relating to everything. Our relation to everything is community. It doesn't matter who you are.
I love that you bring that up, because I went through that same thing where, everybody was saying, oh, you have to protect yourself. And I was like, that doesn't feel right, because anytime you put up a wall or a barrier, like there's always resistance. Like that's just the way it is. And what I realized for myself was that if I define my energy and my space and I know who I am, then it's really clear when mismatched energies show up. It's like that doesn't feel right. Like that's not my energy. Like that's not my stuff.
Mhm.
And we don't have to like stay away. We can just simply allow it to pass right through without having it stuck all over us.
Yeah, and still love it.
Right? Exactly. It's like we can honor, we can honor other people for who they are. Like we don't have to, push against their ideas, but we also don't have to engage with them.
Right.
you know?
Well, yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Like in terms of community, like people gathering, there's always somebody, not always, but there may be somebody in a group that's gathered, or a community that is together in some space, however it is, where, that person's not at the level you would like them to be at, or, and then that's kind of, then I talk to myself and I'm like, well, that's judgmental, but that's my other thing, whole other idea. But I've learned to just, I've learned sometimes the hard way to, accept where they are and who they are for whatever reason that they're where they're at. That's who they are, and just accept it, period. And I hope too that people do that for me. I hope that if I'm in a setting where, I'm not quite at the right, I shouldn't say right, if I'm not quite at the whatever it is, the energetic compatibility for that group, that they, just accept me for where I am. And in doing that, we still get to be open, and we still get to be who we are, and we still get to explore each other's beings, and share knowledge, and learn. And I think that's the only way that we can really grow, and do that, is to be open to whoever's wherever at whatever point. And somebody told me a long time ago, they're like, oh wow, Rachel, you've got a giant heart. You'd be sitting on that park bench with your heart wide open, loving that serial killer right next to you, not even seeing that axe. So there is a point of discernment that has to come with it. Because I did used to be that way and be like, oh, you have a beautiful heart. Oh, I didn't see the axe you have, or whatever. But then I have looked into that too, for myself, like, who what is this person that has this vibe that I don't jive with? And it's that's who they are. That's where they're at. That's what that, who knows? Maybe that's their whole purpose of being here. And who am I to judge it? And maybe there is something in there for me to learn, which I did.
Hopefully not from a serial axe murderer.
Right. Not an actual serial killer, just
Right.
idea of it.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, John says, at 2 years old, we were all love. Anyone that ever listened to this message would be your friend, no matter what skin color, religion, nationality, etc. We were born of total oneness. Shouldn't we be smarter now than when we were 2? I love your message. Keep loving souls. And it's important to respect each other's memories as we respect our own. So true. And it is, when you put little kids together, they just simply play. They're not born, the little kids are not born as the serial axe murderer, and they're not born with judgments, and well, they're taught to be that way.
Right.
And the ones that are the serial axe murderers, they have been seriously mistreated and abused in this society. They didn't just get that way because they weren't born that way.
Or they were born in a way that they couldn't comprehend the only means of community they had around them, so it distorted their version of community.
Exactly.
And community can be weird.
It's like, if you're born without community, without a loving, supportive community around you, like, this life can be incredibly overwhelming and disturbing and distorted. And it's very sad that, I think bringing heaven back to earth is about creating community, not only with ourselves, but with the earth and all of the elements.
Yeah, well, and then you brought up, that leads me to, thinking about community in general is like anything else. It's, you nurture it, and you make it what you want it to be. You be what you want the world to be, and then you draw in those community members around you that also be that. I know I'm using that in a weird grammar way, but you want it to be that. You want to be what the world around you is wanted to be, so you want those people to be that way too. And sadly, most of us, I would say, grow up in some sort of community that isn't of our like energy. So we have to navigate through that without a lot of guidance a lot of the time. And how many people are out there in the world, that never even had the moment to say, um, oh, growing up, I felt like I didn't belong. But instead of being able to acknowledge that and take the time to go inside and nurture that, they just, I'm going to work 9 to 5 and I'm just going to keep doing this because that's what I'm supposed to do. So they reach outside of themselves because they never had that moment to pause and have that be held by community and embraced and nurtured that way, which is
Exactly.
way important.
Yeah. And just remembering like back to high school, it's like you had all the cliques of, trying to fit into the cool kids or the fashion kid, like wherever. And like it was never really taught, like nobody ever wanted to admit like feeling uncomfortable or feeling different or,
Yeah.
so it's so important. John, Keith, good morning, Keith. Keith's saying, we're all brothers and sisters, all related. It would be amazing if we all treated each other this way with that love and respect. Absolutely. Good morning, Michelle. Long time no see. How you doing? And John says, if things happen if things happen for you, you see things as lessons. If you see things happen to you, you don't see the lesson that it could teach you. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then again, if you have a community around you supporting you, then if something does happen to you, then you have that ability to let go of all of the whatever has happened to you and be held in that space of community where you can heal and you can grow and you can come around from that to you, hopefully.
exactly. Yeah, and when we start to raise our consciousness and raise our awareness and start to realize that we are creating our own reality, like the stuff isn't really happening to us, something in us attracted that. When we start to be able to surround ourselves with conscious, awake people, we always have people that are there to help us see how to clear that out, how to move past it, how to reframe it or see it in a different perspective so that we don't have to wallow in it and carry it with us for forever, or feel ashamed of ourselves or, like we did something wrong. It's all about, helping each other to heal.
Yeah, that's key. Can you imagine every baby that's born on this planet if it had a community of um, clear, conscious, loving people around it? How amazing the world would be in like 20 years.
Exactly. I mean, if this world was just a kind, caring world and children were just allowed to grow up naturally instead of being shipped off to the artificial, 9 to 5, you're going to go to school from these hours to these hours. And that, like, if we were able to actually just be who we truly are, this whole world would change literally overnight.
Yeah, it would. It totally would. I always say, if you had a moment, if everybody on the planet had a moment to say, stop, you are completely held, you are completely taken care of, go inside, feel yourself, be with yourself, love yourself, hug yourself, tell yourself how much you love yourself, the next day the world would change. The next moment the world would change.
Exactly. When we do that, when we love ourselves, when we feel good about who we are, our bodies feel good, our bodies stay in balance. And we don't end up sitting on the bench with the axe murderer, because like there's like they just don't exist in the same vibrational frequency. So like we don't have to worry about who we're protecting ourselves from. It's like when we're in that high vibration, we are that love, and we just automatically are attracting like-minded, like vibrational people.
Yeah, and throughout our lifetimes, if we have that, we don't tend to have something else that we hold on to that becomes something that isn't necessarily needing to be there. We're able to open and release and let flow and let go.
Exactly. Keith says things happen through us, not to us. Exactly.
Mhm.
John says, why don't you gals have a group meeting once in a while for like-minded humanoids?
Working on it, John, working on it.
We are, absolutely.
I used to have group meetings all the time of community because I knew how important it was. And just it kind of, I think I just needed to move away from that for a while and just be in my own little cocoon.
Mhm.
But I'm ready again. I'm feeling the need again for community, and it's time. And I think, boy, I think community now more than ever is going to be powerful community.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, Rachel and I are, and Keith and Brenda and Shannon, who are all watching today. We're all super lucky to be in these groups. We call them dream weaving groups, where we gather together as like-minded community, and we simply support each other all the time. You know, we're always feeling held, we're always feeling supported, we're always feeling that, you know, if we're having a bad day, we can just simply come in and go, you know, this is going on, and not fear being judged, and we get that support back. So it's super important to be able to gather community.
Yeah, those are unbelievably powerful.
And Keith says, we hang out with like-minded people in dream weaving. We certainly do. And John says, being is so needed to sit with our soul. Exactly. You know, we've all been groomed to do. You got to do something. What are you going to do when you grow up? How are you going to do that?
Right.
It's like we're never really taught to be.
Yeah.
You know, I love that story of, I think it was John Lennon, when the teacher asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, happy. And she said, I don't think you understand the question. And he's like, I don't think you understand my answer.
I love it. One of my favorite teachers said to me once, well, you can't do until you be. So it's kind of dooby dooby doo. And he'd like break into a little wiggle, and I loved it.
Love that. Yeah, you know, we've never been taught that it's just that we are fine exactly as we are. You know, we've always been taught who we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be it.
Yeah.
And you know, it really has been, you know, we're starting to really understand that, you know, we've grown up in a society that is very, very anti-life. Yeah, it's anti-soul. And, you know, trying to fit into an anti-life society when we are life itself has been pretty challenging for everybody.
Yeah, it's you come to a point in your life where you're like, where is me versus what I was bred to be or raised to be. And then it's interesting to unweave all of that. And it's not, sometimes it's a little difficult, but it doesn't have to be difficult if you have community around you. And you know, I'm a very independent individual, so I tend to push community away and say, oh no, I can do this. And but I'm learning as I get older that I can reach out for help, and I can reach out for, and it's not even help, it's just knowing that I'm seen. There's something so powerful in that, knowing that you're seen, and knowing that it's okay that you exist, you know? There is something so powerful in just that. Nobody has to come and hold my hand or fix me or anything. It's just give me that, hold me in that space. Holding space is incredibly magical. And I
It
appreciate,
sure
thank you, everybody who does that, um, for me and with me. I am so grateful to you because it's the magic in my life.
Yeah, when I was born, when I was a really little girl, I have memories of being 2 and 3 years old, and I have memories of floating in my bed, just kind of floating in space at night and just seeing
Mm,
the history of the earth. I could see that humanity was asleep. I could see that there's a huge infinite reality that is is what it is, and it always is, and they, being human is just one experience that we have. It's a temporary experience. So when I had those awarenesses, it was so overwhelming to me to know that there's a completely different layer of reality than what we see with our physical eyes here in this society. And so growing up, like I always, like I knew things differently than everybody else knew, but I was never, anything that I ever expressed that was different than what my immediate surroundings were willing to reflect or willing to accept. I got chastised or chided or scolded or told that I was wrong, and it became so debilitating to my being that every time I did anything or said anything, I was always wrong. It was like, at some point, like basically ceased to be able to function because
mm,
I couldn't manage. So I ended up having to isolate myself for a really long time to build back, to pull the pieces of myself forward and to clear out all of the stuff that was not me.
I
You
hear
know,
you.
so it took me a long time to be able to do that. And now, when I started this business, kind of knowing that I have some information that's super helpful to humanity, and obviously I'm here to deliver a lot of this information. But when I first started, like having to go on Facebook Live, it was like, oh my gosh, can I say this without having a whole bunch of arrows shot at me? Or, can I say this without getting my head chopped off or burned at the stake? And it took me a long time to be able to just speak and realize that, what, the people that can hear me actually can gather around me, and it's really helpful, and now I can feel comfortable. But for so long it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not safe to be myself. So I
Mhm.
realized how important it is to be able to have a community where we can just be ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've tended to be somebody who just blurts. But because the I like how you said community versus society. So we have a society around us, but we also can have a community around us. So I like that. I feel like there's a contrast there, um,
Yes.
in a lot of ways. And I always felt like growing up here, in the Adirondacks, in this little town, I always said, like, I said it unconsciously, but I was like, there's no community. There's no sense of community there. And kind of there is a community here, but it's the base, feels like the base of it is around the town for some reason, like the rather than the people. It's around the structure of the town, rather than the people or the land. But maybe that's different for everybody. That's just how I see it, and that's based on imprints of me growing here.
Mhm.
So, and and that's another thing that everybody has. So every person you encounter has a different imprint or a different, means root that they grew up in, a different foundation. And, you know, my goal right now is to solidify and clarify and make my foundation crystalline and just pure, so that I don't have all these distortions. And um because I feel like that if I have a really solid foundation, then the me that grows from there is just pure me. And I can be able to feel free to communicate. And I think I'm probably going to work on that forever, for the whole lifetime that I'm here, because even today I'm like, oh, I'm going to be on a camera on my computer, and I don't know, these people are going to be watching. And um i I just always do that. And I'm different about it now. I actually do it now.
Yay. We're very happy to have you here doing this.
Yeah, but where is that point? So when I was a kid, I was never that way. When I was a child, I was like, I'm me, and I never even gave it a second thought. I never thought about my language, how I'm going to communicate, or what's right for me. I always thought what's right for everyone. So where's that balance? What's right for me versus everyone? So I think if you're clear in your foundation, and you're clear in your roots, then what's right for you is right for everyone around you. And what's not right for those around you, they'll just fall away. It's like this new world that we're trying to build here on earth. I think that, if it's built in goodness, then those who can't match that are just sloth away. That community will just not, that portion of the community won't exist. I think it's
Yeah,
anyway.
I love that. I think that, so many of us are here now to facilitate, creating heaven on earth, to clearing out this anti-life society, that matrix that we have been in. I call it the reversal matrix, where it's the anti-self society. And as we gather together and we start to reconnect to our soul, we start to act from, is this going to help everyone? Is this moving in the direction of heaven on earth? Is this moving in the direction of love? Is this moving in the direction of community to support life on this planet?
Yeah.
And to create that, we kind of start creating it over that old, anti-life, do this, do that, rape the earth, take whatever you need aspect, money, money, money. We start creating over the top of that. And then that lower vibration just starts to fall away organically and naturally, just like you were saying.
Yeah, and I think we're all coming from a space where, I think all of us in general are coming from a space where we were a group of people who were um, unconscious and only thinking of ourselves, but now we're consciously thinking of our big selves. And so that's where I think that the change has happened. And because I look back and I said, earlier, as a child, where did that shift? Because as a child, I wasn't thinking necessarily, all of my actions were not necessarily conscious, and I wasn't quite self-aware. I wasn't never acting in a way that was malicious. I was a kid and I was like, we're born that way. But I think as I grew, I became more self-aware. And so those ways that I was as a kid and being who I am grew and shifted into a way where I was self-aware, sometimes maybe too much self-aware and going to hide. But that self-awareness brought me to a space of wanting to expand from being self-aware and all, like self-absorbed almost, to being self-aware to the point where I'm self-aware now that I know that I need to help and I need to be in service. And I think that's the huge leap, the huge transition that happens. And for me anyway. I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anyone else. I can speak from my perspective and what I've learned and what I feel and what I know. And it's what you get.
Yeah, exactly. We've always been I love that you brought that up, because so many of us have been, well, the majority of society is like, think of everybody else, take care of everybody else first. And, to take care of yourself or think about yourself is being self-absorbed or selfish, to say no to somebody is being selfish. But when we start to become self-aware, we start to realize that, it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say no. And that when we do things that are good for ourselves, we also, that what is good for us actually is good for others as well. Because, being selfish or self-absorbed doesn't include others. And as we start to raise our consciousness, it's like we automatically want good and love and peace and harmony with others as well. It's not any fun, when it's just for ourselves.
That's right. I feel like nothing is really real unless you can share it.
It's beautiful.
Else.
Yeah. It's like, what would it be like if everybody felt good about themselves? What would it be like if everybody felt supported? Would it be like if everybody felt loved and honored and cherished? How different would this world be?
Creativity would just skyrocket.
Right? Exactly. Like
beauty, the beauty. I feel like when people come together and are of that like mindset, the beauty that takes place. And the beauty thing struck me on my drive. I drove 20 hours recently, and I was driving, and I always like, oh, that's pretty, and I'm driving down the road, and I'm realizing, like, I'm driving by New York City, and I'm realizing there's like tower after tower after tower, these 5G tower things, and I'm like, oh, wait, and I'm trying to, all right, I just noticed the beauty, now I'm noticing the tower, so there's something there. And then when I decided, well, there's beauty in it somehow, so let's make it beautiful. And if it can push out all this frequency, let's make it a beautiful frequency. So that was my intention when I saw them, so I consciously changed the way I looked at them while I was driving. And who knows, that was my little game I played, though, and it helped me.
Yeah.
So maybe if more people come together and do something like that, it helps everybody.
Exactly. If we could, it's probably like a whole other show in unto itself. I love that contrast. I talk about the organic matrix versus the artificial matrix. Matrix not meaning like the movie, but meaning like a growing medium, something in which things grow. And if we talk about the organic living life force matrix, then the source of all that is always flowing life force energy, then we can look at the artificial matrix that has been created on this planet, that is part of that whole, it's the anti-life-giving matrix. And we can really see that contrast with these 5G towers and things. And so many of these frequencies are disruptive frequencies. They're not natural frequencies that are being emitted. So if we could take those things, and just like you said, if we could switch those and emit some beautiful, life-giving, coherent frequencies, that would change.
They're there. Why don't we use them? And that's a matter of bringing a community together. And I think too, something that just, came to my mind was, each individual has a creative story or a seed to share with another, and they don't grow unless they're nourished. And it says utilize religion when two or more gather. I There's just so many little hidden treasures and symbols and truths, and even amongst a lot of the I've noticed lately, even amongst a lot of the things that have been uncovered, stating that some of the more ancient societies were not necessarily for the good of all, you can still find things in there where it was like, if you had to say the other side, snuck other things in there to keep it balanced for us now to say, oh well, we can take this and we can use this to grow and interweave into that. And so then that kind of dissipates the negative connotation that's been set in there in a way. But we need more. There's always
Exactly.
more coming together, more networking and more building.
Yeah. There are so many people that somewhere inside they're like, there's got to be something different. There's got to be a better way there. But if they don't have the community to support them in that,
Yeah.
that dream, that seed inside just lays dormant.
Yeah.
And this is one of the beautiful things about the dream weaving groups that we have. We bring together and we speak about our dreams, like the things that we would like to manifest in our lives, and have other people holding those dreams with us and seeing those dreams with us. And people are able to bring their dreams into fruition so much faster when two or more are gathered and supporting that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're really. Lisa introduced me to the dream weaving, and I think I'm only about a month in. I think I'm exactly one moon cycle. And boy, wow, how powerful it's been, how amazing. And that was the turning point for me to step back into community, really. And well, that's why I knew that this show with you, this little talk, was appropriate. There's just so many indicators of, come on, Rachel, get yourself back out there. And and now I've learned to when to stop, when to slow, when to be in my space, when to go into my little bubble of pure potential and grasp onto those little sparks in the dark, and step back out again and share.
Beautiful. Yeah. If anybody is listening and is interested in learning about dream weaving and wants to create community with us, please just reach out, let us know. We'll be happy to invite you to and let you know what dream weaving is all about. And good morning, Lori. John says, I saw the dawning of Aquarius during breath work. Heaven on earth is coming. God won. 99% of human beings are good people with different memories. That's why it's so important to respect others' memories, and we respect our own as we respect our own memories. Everyone is on a different timeline because of their memories. Exactly.
God always wins. God created everything. So good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the sad, the silly. It's all under one.
Exactly. All experiences are available to choose from. So we've been living in this kind of battleground on earth for a really long time. And, now we're here to choose differently, to be able to live in peace and harmony and creativity, and allow that life force energy to start moving through, and see if we can kind of take earth up another octave, see what the higher self can create. Beautiful. Jennifer says, oh, sorry, behind topic. I can't type fast. No worries. Read the matrix. I feel like it's just humans trying to be independent of source, similar to a teenage human. We're reaching the limit of distant that we can be from source. We'll come back together eventually.
Oh my
So
goodness.
directly.
That you even said that's incredible. I love that because I just not too long ago, once in a while I fall in a hole um and I'm like, oh, I'm in a hole. And I don't know. When I fall in a hole, I don't even know my own tools. I forget, I forget.
Yeah.
And then whatever it is that pushes me out of the hole, sometimes I need to be in that hole. All the time I need to be in that hole when I find myself there because there's a reason for it. But whatever it is that prompts me out of that hole is always that disconnect from source. Always, every time I find it, I'm like, oh yeah, oh my God, I forgot. And then I get filled up again. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. But there's always a reason for it at the same time. So, and that she just said that, humans trying to, or beings trying to be, trying to play God instead of being connected and being in the flow of God and being in the flow of all that is and the oneness. And yeah, it is. It's like I'm gonna make this happen. I am the Almighty. Yeah. Thank you for that. I remembered that not too long ago.
Yeah, it's sort of like the pendulum. It can only swing so far and then it comes back. Everything is seeking that balance, and that source is that alignment where everything is just completely aligned, body, mind, and soul. And that's where that oneness is. We've been taken way over to one side and separated from the truth of who we are. Beautiful. Lovely. Michelle says, I want to dream weave. Awesome. We will connect you right up, girly.
You'll love it. You'll love it so much.
Well, and she's got other friends that are dream weaving too. So we will hook you right up. Sweet. So it's such a joy to be able to have these conversations with like-minded community.
Yeah, thank you all for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm so blessed to have my online community, my soul sourced healing community. Thank you all so much, and everybody who listens to me on Connecting You to You radio or on YouTube. I super appreciate all of you as being part of my online community and my in-person community, my dream weaving community. And John says the emotional ups and downs are the trapped traumas that is within our memories of every life. Yes. Try to love the dark because it all has to come out to live in 5D. Exactly. For sure. We are all on this beautiful path of raising our vibration to step into a new dimension of living. That's right. That's far more in alignment with source, with all that is, and allows our creativity and ourselves to blossom and bloom and create brand new things that have not been on this planet before, and to live in ways of community that we haven't lived before or haven't lived in a long time. And when we look at the Native Americans, the ones who live in the rainforest, the Aboriginals, they live in community, not only amongst themselves, but also in community with nature. They live in community with the plants, with the crystals, with the waters, with the airs, with the animals. It really is time to become one earth community where Mother Nature and all the elements are part of our community. So
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's really important for the people, I use the word people loosely, the humans. It's really important for that connection to happen more strongly now than ever with the community that's around us of the land and the the elements. And I think that if humans could find their connection with nature again, you know, that the whole world would shift instantaneously also.
Exactly. You know, nature is always seeking her own balance. Nature exists in cycles, whether it's the cycle of day, night, whether it's the moon cycle, the sun cycles, everything happens in natural rhythm. And since childhood, we've been shipped off to school and really separated from our natural rhythm. You know, that whole 9 to 5 thing, you know, up at night, and you know, you got to go to bed right at 10 and get up at 6. You know, we have really lost touch with our natural rhythms.
Yeah.
So
When I do my, I don't want to say disconnect, but when I go deep inside of my being, to be with myself, I find that I'm really not necessarily going in completely inside. I'm outside in the woods, in the forest, in the trees, in the waters, but I'm also inside. So there's a huge healing element there that takes place. A transition time for me is when I am quiet within this body. But in doing that, I find that I'm always out in nature and with nature to do that. And that's what really soothes me. That's my favorite community.
yeah, you know, nature is a living life force energy. It's always emitting that life force energy. So when we go out into nature, you know, that vibration, that high refined beauty of nature helps to infuse us. Instead of the 5G towers that are sending these frequencies, we get the frequencies of the trees, the grass, the earth, the air, the water, which really soothes the soul. Love it.
Mhm.
Rachel, thank you so much for this amazing conversation today.
Yeah, thank you. It got me all pumped up. I'm all excited to go out in the snow and ski now.
Yay, yes, we have a beautiful powder day here. It'll be really fun to get outside and play and connect with nature, connect with all of the elements. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. If you're watching the replay on Facebook, drop us a little note, give us a thumbs up, let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe. If you're listening on Connecting You to You Radio, thank you so much. Super appreciate it. So until next week, we wish all of you a great week. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for hearing us.
All right. Create for yourselves a great week, everyone. Till next week. Bye for now.
Bye.